guys, welcome to the AFC Podcast. As always, you can watch us on YouTube. That's the best way to enjoy this, so you can see our lovely faces. But other than that, you can also listen on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. See, if you were watching on YouTube right now, you'd be able to see Jim was just voguing. Speaking of Jim, here's my co-host, Jim Galizia.
That's how I intro myself. I walk into rooms now because I don't know how to be like in front of people anymore because I've been alive for 4 months. So now I just walk into rooms and I'm like, hello, here I am. That's just how I walk into rooms now. Quarantine has been tough on me. We're going to have fun today. We're going to talk to Issack Cintron. He is bringing quite a few different films. He has quite a few projects he wanted to show off. We're going to show off the ones that I worked on because me and him have worked together quite a few times. We're going to first show off his clip for Fruta Extraña, which is the Spanish name for strange fruit. We kind of called it both while we were filming it, but we're going to show that clip first. And at the end, we're going to talk to Issack, and then at the end of his interview, we'll also show the trailer for Early Bird, which I shot both of those. I kind of co-shot Strange Fruit with somebody else, but I fully, and my company and my production guys all shot Early Bird. Very proud of those projects, so we're happy that Issack can come on and bring those on, show those off. And his movie of choice as well is Hot Fuzz by Edgar Wright. Great movie. I liked it. Very fun. Edgar Wright has a very unique style. He uses a lot of cool montage stuff. All this stuff is really well thought out. The music is all thought out. Really appreciate that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's very detail oriented. And I've seen it before, but it was a good excuse to kind of rewatch it and watch something funny in spite of everything that's going on.
Yeah, we watch so many dramatic films on this podcast, like things that are just so sad. Please make me laugh. Somebody give me a movie. Everybody comes on the podcast and they want to be like, oh, my favorite movie is this super serious movie from 28 years ago. And I'm like, fuck. I'm happy to watch these classics and stuff, but give me something that's just funny and a good time. And this movie is that. It delivers for sure. Have you ever seen Shaun of the Dead?
Yes.
I could watch that movie anytime. It's like, oh, what movie do you want to watch? I'll watch Shaun of the Dead because it's the 14th time I've seen it and it's still great. But let's not drag on too long. Let's get right into it. Let's show the clip from Fruta Extraña, or Strange Fruit, however you want to say it, and then we'll hop on an interview with Issack.
Yeah, I got time.
Hey guys, welcome back. So we just showed a clip from Strange Fruit for Issack Cintron here. Issack, you're the director, you're the writer. Tell us a little bit about Strange Fruit, or Fruta Extraña.
So Fruta Extraña was really just, it came from a place of I really wanted to just make a film that was like a daytime horror, but I wanted it to tie into something that's pretty relevant. And I won't go into spoiling it because I'm like really like, you know, I'm really cautious about like giving away too much about the plot, but I get it. Really, to me, it relates a lot to what's going on now, and it touches upon the topics of immigration in terms of the perception of immigrants from far right individuals, and this is just kind of touching upon that um, kind of like using the genre of horror and thriller to convey this message and showing what the real horror is as it pertains to that subject. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. We shot it last June, like almost exactly a year ago. It'll be a year at the end of the month. And then, yeah, we shot out here on Long Island. Found we found some place that looked like a desert enough out east, so that was fun. Jim was a part of that as my co-cinematographer, along with Manny Rodriguez. It stars Mauricio Hidalgo, AJ Hero, and Leo DeFriend. They were all fantastic. It was a great experience. It was really a guerrilla type shoot as well, to like the fullest extent. And yeah, I'm really excited about it. I think it really came out really well.
Yeah, wasn't the field that we shot in that was the desert, quote unquote?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't we pull up on it and we were just like, hopefully these people don't bother us? And then they pulled up and you were like, can we just shoot here? And they were like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, basically. Well, I went, you know, it was funny, like a month before we shot there, or I want to say about a month before, my friend Jack and we went out there and we were scouting, and I was trying to find like, okay, so who owns the property? And it was so ironic because I was like, oh, somebody's like, oh, you know who owns that? This guy, John owns that. So Jack and I were like, well, do you know where John is? Like, well, he has an office down the road. So we went down the road. There was nobody at the office. They were like, well, he has a house up the road. So we went to his house. Nobody's at the house. And we were just like, okay, so this guy is a ghost basically. And so we go to shoot there. And then not only does he show up, he's the last person to show up. His brother shows up, and then his daughter showed up. And each of them were like, yeah, it's okay, you can film there. That sounds cool. And I was like, oh, okay. So it took a little time, but
yeah, that could go so sideways so fast. They could be like, get the fuck off my property, and then it's over.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, I won't reveal the trick I have to get away with that I used at the preserve. But yeah, we didn't have a way of getting permits for anything because we were trying to find John to get a permit, to get his permission. That's how I tried to go about it. But we were like, well, if we're just going to be here, we weren't there for entirely too long. We weren't trashing his property or anything like that. And but you know, thank God we ran into him, and he was like, yeah, you gave us this blessing. So thank you for him and his family for allowing us to shoot on his property. And then we did out west towards in Oyster Bay area, Syosset area. We went into that to Mutton Town Preserve. And yeah, I called for weeks trying to get permission, but it was like impossible for anybody. Like, yeah, you can get permission from them, or you can get permission from me. They were just like, you could try this, you could try that. They might have something, and every avenue was like, no, they don't have. Like, we're not responsible for that. And so it was kind of like, well, let's just go and shoot it and do the best we can. And if anybody says something, we'll just like I guess ask for forgiveness. So not the greatest way of going about shooting a film. Not the most ideal. You kind of would rather have less of the headache of worrying about, oh my God, are these people going to just kick us out or something? But
yeah,
sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
There was also like a hurricane during that shoot. I remember we were in the woods, and all of a sudden there were trees that were like this, like big, huge, like 100-foot tall trees. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden they were like this, sideways. Mm-hmm. And the wind was blowing so fast, and stuff was like, branches were falling off. We were like, let's go. And then the whole town of Brentwood was like out of power for that day. Like, it was an actual big storm came through out of nowhere.
Yeah, I heard that it was a tornado touchdown somewhere, and if I could believe it, because the way that wind was, it was like, yeah, a storm's coming in. But this was just no storm. This just like things were falling, and we were panicking, and I like told her to get in cover, don't worry about me. It was like really like, but we had
that you were like, I'm good, don't worry about me, protect the camera, and you were like trying to shield the camera. I was like, dude, if you die though, this is gonna like the camera can get replaced.
That's why we have assistant directors. They can fill in for us. So, yeah, the director's dead, but the show must go on. So
you just got promoted. Congratulations. The director is unconscious. Tell us about some of the other projects you've worked on throughout the ages.
So before like 2019 or including or
What got you into the industry in the first place? When did you first become a filmmaker or want to become a filmmaker?
so that's a really complicated answer. There's like not like one singular answer. I think the easiest one is to say like when I was in college, I just declared the film major at, like partway through my freshman year and started in my sophomore year. But it was a longer journey before that. Like my whole childhood, I wanted to be a baseball player. That was like my goal in life, and I wanted to play like maybe for the Yankees, but for just anybody. And I played sports every single year. And then I got injured my junior year of high school and messed up my shoulder, and I got cut from my team both in junior and senior years. So I kind of was like left with in my junior year, like, oh, I don't know what I want to do right now. Like I have the spring to myself now. I don't have sports to, or baseball to worry about. And I decided on a whim, like, let me join drama club. I had like interest in it back earlier in the year, but I had to give it up to get ready for baseball. And then my drama teacher, who Jim met, he worked on Strange Fruit with us. His name was Seth Rochester. He I went into drama club the day after I got cut, and I was like, "Hey, I got cut from the baseball team," and he was just like, "Oh, that sucks. Well, we're glad to have you part of drama club." And then I joined, and I did that my whole rest of junior year, all of senior year. I loved it, and I was like, I really want to do acting. And then I went into college. I went in as a journalism major. But before all of that happened, I guess I had little breadcrumbs throughout my childhood and my upbringing that led me to become a filmmaker. Like when I was 9, I wanted a film camera. My grandmother got me this Sony Handycam that shot like these little video cassette tapes when I was like 9 for Christmas, and I loved it. And I would just film random stuff with it. And then, I won't mention the YouTube channel I had back in high school, but yeah, I was like recording some videos and stuff that were really embarrassing. But I had a camera for that, so I guess I was always interested in it. And part in my junior year as well, which is just weird. It's all like this complicated answer, but like this teacher that I was a student custodian also, and I would clean the art wing, and one of the teachers ran a class called Media Communications. His name was Peter Corvesos, and he was like, "Hey," and it was like they had a TV studio, they had cameras, and they had all that. And I was like, "Oh man, how do you do this class?" And he's like, "You should sign up for your senior year and do media communications." So I did, and that was my crash course in filmmaking. It taught me how to shoot a film, edit a film, write like a treatment for a story. And it was a blast, and that was kind of the origin of You So Stupid Productions, was from that class. It was a joke because one of my teammates for like my last 2 projects, he coincidentally in the first 2 projects we had in the class had the line "You So Stupid," and he said it with this like his thick Hispanic accent and everything. So he was like, "You so stupid," and my teacher loved it. So for our final project, we named it "We're from You So Stupid Productions," and he thought it was a good gag. And then, I went to college and declared I was a journalism major. I worked for my school newspaper, the Oswegonian, and in the middle of the spring, they were like, "Hey, there's a film festival happening this weekend, the 36-hour festival. Would you like to go and cover it for us?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not? I don't have anything to do." I went and covered it, and I was just like blown away by like all the projects these kids made it in 36 hours. And I was like, that's amazing. And I was like, how do I do that? I want to do that. And I spent the next week trying to find out how to become a film major. And I went and met Amy Shore, who was the head of the Cinema and Screen Studies department at the time. And she sold me on the major when she was like, "You're going to effing hate this major, but you're going to love every moment of it." And I was like, all right, this sounds like what I want to do. And that was basically my foot in the door. And yeah, so that was that. And I graduated in 2017. I kept the journalism major as well. And afterwards, I just been working in the industry. I met Jim, I think, what was it, like September, October, we did Ode to Passion. And it was, so that was like
Festivals of Patience, yeah.
then, yeah, that was what, like, I guess that's 5 or 6 months after I graduated college. And so I did a few things. I worked on a couple of features, that one, and one in Poughkeepsie that is yet to be released, and I don't know what they renamed it to, so I can't tell you. And I did a couple of shorts throughout the New York City area, and my goal was to build up connections, have a network of people within the industry that I can not only just work with, but also befriend and get to know very well. So long-winded answer. So.
Well, that's awesome though, because that's how you get stuff done, is having a huge network of people that you can call on at any moment. So talk a little bit about Early Bird, because we also showed that clip. So where did that idea come from? How did it come to fruition?
Well, Early Bird, along with the script for Early Bird and also like Strange Fruit, was from I was doing a workshop with my friend Matthew Brennan, who he was my co-cinematographer on my senior thesis film Eddie Milo in the Box, and he also was my cinematographer on Hotline, which was the first short I did after graduating. And he was like, hey, he's a writer, and he invited me and a couple of other people that we were friends with that are writers as well. They're like, hey, let's do a workshop and work on each other's scripts, because we're out of college, we don't have that form anymore. So I wrote Strange Fruit was like the second script I wrote for that workshop, and I was like, you know what, I think this has potential. So I started moving that along. And then I think January of 2019, I wrote Early Bird just as an exercise. I was like, I want to write something, and it doesn't have to mean much. I just wanted to write it. And I did, and I got a lot of really good feedback from them on it. So this is really good. This is really tight, and this is really interesting. And so I just had that. And then in March or April, I want to say about like mid-March, I was reached out to by a couple of former college professors who said, there's a short film contest coming up in the central New York area that we'd like you to enter. We were telling everybody at Oswego to enter in it that graduated. And they said, and I was like, all right. So I submitted Strange Fruit, and I submitted Early Bird, and I submitted a third script that I kind of just rushed together, because I was like, this would be cool too. And I submitted to the contest in April, and both Early Bird and Strange Fruit were named semifinalists out of, I think there were somewhere upwards like 80 submissions, something like that. And we had, there was 8 semifinalists and then 4 finalist scripts. So 2 of my scripts were picked, and then they ultimately went with Early Bird. And so from there, I had to rewrite a bit of it. And because it was set at the time in the Southwest, like in Texas, New Mexico area. And from that point, they were like, could you make it based in Syracuse? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I switched it up, and then I was named the finalist. So I was one of 4 scripts that we would receive a grant for $40,000 to go up to Central New York and shoot the film. And so that was the jumping off point for there. So it kind of went back to back. I prepared all of May and June for Strange Fruit, and then like 2 days after we wrapped on that, I started going right into pre-production for Early Bird. We were shooting the first week in August, and Jim was the cinematographer on that one, which he did such a great job. And that was a production that felt like really snake bit at times, because we got hit with like all the curveballs in the world, and especially like the weather, losing the picture car the day before filming. It was just like
I remember it was like the second day, we were like halfway through it, and you were like, maybe we should just call it quits. And I was like, no, man, just wait till it stops raining. You were just like getting hit with all the curveballs. And it feels like that sometimes when you're on a film set, and especially too the added pressure of, the contest gives you money to make the film. So now you have like a budget, and there's just a lot of pressure being the writer director of it. But you handled it well, and the film came out great.
Yeah. I think
proud of my guys too at New View Productions. Those guys, shameless plug. Everybody's awesome.
No, absolutely. No, New View, you guys, like what I told you. I said, this is New View. This is the full view right here. Okay. And it was, you guys know, you and the Michaels were great. My crew, I can't say enough about how great my crew is for all of that. It was just, I always am a firm believer I'm nothing without my crew and everybody who puts their effort in. and you know, it means a lot to me. Like I don't look at everybody as like I it's weird because like coming from Oswego, where I went to school, we were taught like we were called feral filmmakers. We were just told like, you know, you've got to you know, do it yourself. We were such a DIY thing. Like there were so many projects where there was just me and like maybe two other people were the crew, or I was the only crew and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And so
That's
I
how
was
I learned filmmaking too. On my first day
Mm.
of college, my film 101 class, the teacher was just like, all right, welcome to film 101. Everyone get out, go film something and come back to me next class. And we all just were left to our own devices. He didn't explain anything. He didn't say what kind of film. He just said, go film something, bring it back, and then we'll talk about it. And then the
Yeah.
next class was less of a workshop and more of like, let's talk about what you filmed, and got more into actually teaching us.
Mhm.
But you know,
That's a unique. That was kind of what we had. We had a class called Film Practicum that was like you have a week every week you had to submit a new film, and it was like every month. So the first Monday was like, okay, so this is your prompt. Go out and do it. The next Monday you bring. It was a 3-hour class on Monday nights, and so we were like, you got to go film, spend the week filming, and bring it in on Monday, even if it's not really like the final project and everything, but bring it back to us and then get ready to film the next one. And it was like that every week, and that was the most intense course. I don't know how I got a B plus in that class, because there were so many times where like I had one issue where like my hard drive crapped out on me, and I lost a whole film that we shot, and was like, oh, this was so good though. And so I didn't get to submit that project, but no, it was a great. I get that. Like, yeah, it was just like intensive, and that for me was a tough year because I was a RA at the same time. So like a lot of my time was like, oh, I could be filming right now, but I have to like babysit college students for like the night, and took away so much time from me at that point. But no, I get that. Like it was for us, they just told us like go in there and go out there and just film and do whatever and just learn. Like they kind of gave us the opportunities to fail in order to succeed. They're like, okay, so now that you failed, what did you learn? Or like now that it didn't go the way you planned,
Yeah.
you know, what did you learn? And I think
trial by fire.
yeah, it was great for that regard. So like when I got out of college and was doing stuff like Hotline and Early Bird and Strange Fruit, it was weird because I was so used to wearing multiple hats on a set that I was like sitting back and being the director was like new. I'm like, okay, I should be doing something else right now. They're like, Jim, I think was like, no, you're the director. You just direct. That's it. And I'm like, all right, so I guess I'll have to get used to that. And yeah, so but that's why like I give praise to my crew because like I feel like I'm nothing without them. I try to at least know everything about their jobs and understand the importance of it.
Yeah. I think
Definitely.
doing a little bit of everything, being that DIY kind of a person, it's important to do that at some point, because if you just jump into the high levels of filmmaking, you understand one perspective. You know how to be a producer or a director or a writer. You don't know anything about the lights. So I've talked about this before on the podcast, but I took Martin Scorsese's masterclass.
I think you told me about this too. Yeah.
He doesn't know a fucking thing about any of the technical aspects of anything. Like, if you asked him what kind of a light, like, should we put up this Joker light? He'd be like, what is that? I don't know what that is. Is it the one that goes neh? Or is it the one that goes neh? Like, he wouldn't know. He's making it up as he goes. But, obviously he's very creative. He has a very amazing eye. He knows what he likes, but he's a director. And then you have people who, didn't start out making huge movies with Robert De Niro. And I don't even know where Martin Scorsese actually started, but
He went to NYU. That was a big thing. Like that was actually oddly enough good way of bringing him up. Like when I was at Oswego, we had a film festival called the SUNY Wide Film Festival, which was open for all SUNY schools to submit to. And during the first one we hosted, I want to say that was 2015 or 20. No, it was 2016. We hosted it. No, it was 2015. And we hosted and we had a panel called Breaking into the Business, and they explained it was from people who are in Hollywood or in like the business somehow, and they came and sat down, and one person stood up and asked like, hey, now that when I graduate with my bachelor's in film, should I just go get my master's? Would that help me out? And he was like, and one of the persons was like, no, absolutely not. As a matter of fact, you don't even need to be in college to learn how to do filmmaking. And it puts it in perspective because when you look at it this way, Scorsese went to NYU and learned about directing and writing and everything, and he's won Oscars. But at the same time, Quentin Tarantino dropped out of high school, worked in a video store, wrote a couple of scripts, and
I
met
feel
the
like
right people.
Scorsese's this weird, like he's like the one where they said, you go to college and you get an education in it and you do it as a career and you do it like this, it'll work for you. He's like the one guy where that actually happened.
Yeah.
And then everybody else is like, it's going to happen for me. And then they go to college, they learn for 4 years. It's not what they expect. They don't really get out of it what they think. Because you know what it is too? You can sit in the classroom, you can learn about filmmaking. But unless you pick up a camera and actually start doing it, or actually try to learn how to do it, you're not gonna. You could learn about what a light is and have all this technical knowledge. Then you show up and you're like, I don't know how to open a C-stand up. And I don't know how to put this tripod up correctly.
Yeah.
Well, your camera shots are like tilted in a weird way. So it's just, you gotta just do it. And that's the best way.
Well, it's the same with acting too. You go to school, you spend, hundreds of thousands of dollars to get, an education from a school that has a good name to it, but you're in this bubble where you don't actually have to do the business side of it, and you don't have to really deal with the real life side of it. So once you get out of school and have to deal with, well, I need a job to pay my rent, but I still need that job to be flexible enough to where I can audition, I can take classes, I can do all this stuff. And the only projects I'm getting offered right now are projects that don't pay any money. A lot of people, it thins the herd out a lot from people who were like, well, I liked it in college when that was all I did and I didn't have to do anything else. So once you get out into the real world, then you have to, balance everything.
I'm sure it's more exponentially more as an actor for this kind of a thing. But when you show somebody your work, when you show like, oh, this is my film, everyone you show it to is like, that was great. You did so good. Like, it's awesome. And you're like, cool, now hire me. And they're like, nah.
Yeah.
Like, I'll do that instead. And I'm sure as an actor, you're like, look at all this amazing stuff I've done. And throughout all of school, you're being told how good you are and you're doing great. You get A's on all your classes. And then you get out of school and everybody's like, fuck you. You're at the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, you're one of a million other people.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you were talking about acting, how it was different for actors to get in as well. And I was going to mention, like, as a director, I think part of my, like, I don't ever know, like, what my directing style is or whatever, but I think it was really beneficial for me to do, they always talk about, oh, if you're a director, you should do acting classes so you know how to direct actors and everything. And well, I didn't really take an acting class, but I did, I acted in drama club at my high school for about a year and a half. And then I did act in theater for my college for my freshman semester, my first semester. And it was to learn to, but it was kind of like learning how those directors direct the actors on stage, and being a part of that, and learning about, blocking, and learning about, well, you could, delivering lines, and there's a lot more to it than that, but finding the emotional weight of a scene, finding, what can best translate the story or the character and stuff. I'm losing the words, but it was like beneficial, I think, and especially and I think that's a really, they talk about like, oh, anybody can act, but it's like, yeah, but anybody can act, but like, it doesn't mean that they can understand the characters or understand the script or understand the story or what it goes into making the story better or whatnot, and enhancing it and adding different elements to it. So I think for people who go to school for acting, I don't think it's all for nothing, even if it is a struggle to get out. But it's like you really learn about yourself as an actor and what your range is and what you're comfortable with, and it gives you another perception of, I think, the world, because you have to view it through another person's eyes in an essence and translate it as such. Yeah. I mean, look at John Wayne.
Actors do research, and they like an actor who has to play someone who's been in jail for their most of their life. They go to jail for 2 weeks because they just want to get the vibe of it. But there's method actors, and then there's people that are just,
and then there's assholes.
Then there's John. Then there's John Wayne, who has to play Genghis Khan, and he plays like he's just like, I'm the Chinaman, and stuff. And he does it in his accent and a terrible yellow face. And it's like, and if you look at a lot of John Wayne movies, they're not good. He's not a good actor. He just plays John Wayne as this person. And it's
I'm
like,
John Wayne, Pilgrims.
Happy Thanksgiving, Pilgrims. Like, this Family Guy put it perfectly. But yeah, like,
I feel like we got to work in a Family Guy reference every episode. Like for the last like 3-4 episodes, we worked in like one.
We will work in some at some point. I've watched enough Family Guy to indulge in that. So
I feel like every film set with Isaac, it was just like Rick and Morty references the whole time. Be like, let's call action. Ready, Morty? Are you ready to call action, Morty? I don't know if we're ready, Morty.
Or we would make a reference to Rick and Morty on the slate. It'd be like, instead of take two Bravo, it'd be like, take two Bird Person. Act in Mark. It'd just be like,
it's important to have fun with it. If you're not having fun, then what the fuck are you doing on a film?
I wholeheartedly agree with that. Like, I've been on sets where like, we and I'm sure Jim has been, where like where the directors were just complete, nightmares to work with, or there are people on set who are just like sulking. I'm kind of like, I can't have that negative energy on my sets. It just because it's like
there's time and place for it. Like if you're filming a very dramatic scene or something really terrible happens, someone's like murdered, or it's a very private scene, it's like a sex scene or something like that. You don't want to come in with this like super funny attitude and saying like Rick and Morty references. That's when you take it a little more seriously. But it's all about knowing the time and the place to do stuff and have fun with it, because you do want to build a rapport with these people that you're working with, because you want to keep working with them, especially if they're talented, they know what they're doing. So especially meet each other for the first time. So
especially also like people that like you get along with. I think they talk about sometimes like I put an emphasis, at least when like I actually hate doing auditions. I had to do auditions for Early Bird, and I had to do auditions for Hotline and for Eddie Milo in the Box, and I just don't like it. Not because it's cool to meet new actors. It's just I hate having to tell one of these many actors that came in and sat down like we have 4 actors that come in, 3 of them I got to tell them, hey, I'm sorry you didn't get the part, and I don't want you to. But it's because like I don't want them to take it like you're not a good actor or anything like that. Or it's. But I also, but when I do auditions, I always look at it as, can I get along with this person? Like, do they seem like they're a nice person? Like my philosophy is like, as a filmmaker, is like, you're an actor, you know how to act. If you've taken classes or you've done stuff, you know how to act, you know how to read, and that's fine. That's not what matters. It's like, to me, what matters more is like, how are you as an individual? How does this character, the story relate to you, or how does it resonate with you? And just how is your demeanor? I think that means a little bit more, because if you come off as likable, if you come off as, oh, this person or like you're really super into the film, or you're really into the character, or you're really intrigued, and that resonates. Like when I was doing the casting for Eddie Milo in the Box, we had to cast 2 parts. It was the father, who was the character was Owen, and the mother, who was Sasha. And we auditioned 3 actors at the end of the day for the part of Owen. The guy who won the part, his name is Sam Gomez. He's currently on a show I think called The Baker, something on ABC, something Beauty and the Baker or something like that. But he was also in a recent season of The Punisher. So he's been doing a lot of really good work. But when I initially reached out to Sam about, like, I would like for you to come out for the part, I'm interested in having you audition, he initially turned it down. But when I described the character to him in the email, like in the initial email, saying like, oh, the character is Owen, he's a single father trying to keep it together, and struggling with like the end of his marriage and trying to raise a son. He emailed me back and he's like, hey, I'm glad you reached out. Sorry, I'm not really looking to do student work at this point. But he was like, but the character sounds really interesting. Could I like read the script? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I sent him the script, and he emailed me back like, I love this story. And he's like, I love the character. And he was like, I would love to audition. So it was like a complete 180 from like originally rejecting. It's like, no, I would love to try this out. And when we sat down at the interview in the audition, it was me and my mother, because she like was helping me out a lot on that film. And we just got along. Like he just was like, he resonated so much. Like, I've been acting for so many years now, but you never see parts like this. And I get this, like, I understand, because like I know people who've lived this, and I feel like that's a side of there's a side of life people don't really see enough in film, and I'd love to bring that to life. And he was just from the beginning just knew the part, like, and but it was just how it sat with him and how he showed he really wanted the part, but he also was like, not just because he wants to act, but also because he feels like, I can do this so much justice. I get it. And then there was two other actors that came in. One of them, his name was Omar. He was the last one we read. His name is Omar Cruz, and he read so well for the part, and he was also such a great person, and he was so invested, like, yeah, this is something I have not seen a role like this. And I'm really and so it was to a point where Omar was so good. And I was like, he had this energy and this about him that I was like, we could use this in the film somehow. So I wrote a new part for him that he had like 2 lines, but I was like, I want you in this film at some capacity, and created a whole part for him. And the third actor who came in, I forget his last name, but I won't put him out there like that. But he read for it, and he had the looks, he had it, and he could read very well, but he just didn't ask any questions about the part. He didn't really ask anything about the background of the story. Didn't really show like that it meant something to him, and he was kind of in and out in 20 minutes, whereas the others were like in and out in like an hour. So it kind of spoke volumes at that point. It's like, all right, well, I get this is a student film, but you would, if you weren't that interested, don't come read for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it kind of just
might be like a fun workshop to do. I've heard about a director, I forget who it is, but he did this big movie where he approached it from a different angle. Usually you write the script and then you find the actors to fit your idea. He instead held auditions, threw a bunch of random parts out there, had hundreds of actors came through. And I think this is a filmmaker who's kind of established too, so people already knew who he was. So he had infinite people to pick from. He picked like his 6 or 7 favorite auditions or actors from the auditions, and he said, these are like my favorite 6 or 7 that came through. They did their thing. I don't have a character or a script written yet, but he picked them all out, and then he brought them all together. They all came in, they just had like a dinner and hung out. He got to know them as a person, got to know more about them. And then he said, all right, cool, now that I know you guys and I know the vibe of what you're all about, what you're all about, now I'm going to write a story for you guys, and you're the cast. And it was a very interesting idea. It's almost like a social experiment to do it the opposite way, to find the actors and then write the script. But I remember that script. I wish I remembered the name of it, but it won awards. It won film festivals. It was really cool. Interesting way to do it. But a lot of it is just finding out the vibes of people and how they act and how they speak. And I think your directing style too, you're pretty loose with everything. So like once you find people you want to work with, you're just like, cool, you do your thing, I'm going to be over here directing. And you just let people do their thing, which is cool, because some directors are like, I need to be a part of every decision that is ever made, and it can hinder the film.
Yeah, I kind of just try to be like, let them, do their thing. Like, our sound guy, he, that we've used on all like the last 3 films, he's, one of the, I've talked with him enough about audio. Like I do audio production myself, that like I'll consult with him and everything, but I try not to get in their way. Like at least I hope I don't get in people's way and like, tell them how to do their job. Sometimes it'll happen because like I feel like we'll be pressed on time. I'm like, all right, you got to do this a little quicker. But but I think that kind of comes with the territory of working on a film. Like at some point you're gonna have to like, okay, like we have a time crunch, or we have to get this done, or this should be this way. But I try otherwise, not to impede on everybody else's like step on people's toes, because I trust them. It comes down to a lot of trust when on being on a film set and being on a crew. You have to be able to rely on everybody else, and you want to have it that they don't feel like there's a pressure on them. We're all, I like you said, this is fun. Honestly, how many people in the world can say their career is filmmaking? It's like, it's such a cool endeavor that like you're making movies. Like why? I know it's stressful. I know it can be really hard, and it can be unrelenting, or is it relent? No, unrelenting. One of the words. That it's but at the end of the day, it's so much fun. Like it's so much. I would rather be stressed out on a film set than be stressed out working an office job. You know, like for some people that's okay, and I'm like not knocking it, but just me personally, I just couldn't see myself doing something or stressing out about something I don't care about and nearly as much. I feel like you should love what you do and even love the highs and lows that come with it. And even my lowest points in filmmaking have been some of the best moments for me because it's like, okay, that sucked. Now let's just build off of that. And I think that's an element of filmmaking or an element of the career that people should appreciate. Like there's going to be low points and that's fine, but you got to build off of those and see, okay, so that film was a piece of crap. That experience sucked. My performance is bad. I didn't really do the best job here. Okay, so going forward, which is my motto, there will always be more. So okay, we didn't do something on that film. There's going to be more, so we can get it right for the next one. So there are even things that I thought we could have done better with on Strange Fruit, and then we implemented on Early Bird, and things with that I didn't do on Early Bird that I felt like I should do moving forward. So it's just like, yeah, I think for altogether, it's such a awesome field. Like it's something that just is like, you're never going to get it perfect. But it's always something you can keep working towards. Like it's just, I can't really describe filmmaking in a better way than that. To me, at least, it's a lot of fun. It's awesome to be to make art like this in such a medium. And I think the key thing is Jordan Peele had a really great quote. He was talking in terms of just screenwriting. He said, but I like to apply it to a lot of things. It's called follow the fun. And if it's no fun, find it somewhere else. And I think that's a lot of it with filmmaking is just follow the fun. And if you don't think it's fun, then, find something else or find another way to find that fun because you will be able to discover it. So,
yeah. Some people too, they work on projects that they're just not interested in. So you're in the industry you want to be in, but you're working on stuff that you just don't want to do.
mm-hmm.
And it's really just about finding what you want to do and how you want to make movies. So you might be a camera person, you might be filming videos for some business, and you're like, I hate filming videos for this business, whatever. And you want to make movies that are like comedies or something different. It's about finding your lane in the industry and just sticking to your lane.
Mm-hmm.
And branching out, experimenting, trying new things, but you gotta find your way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, speaking of people finding their own way and following the fun, the movie that you suggested for us, Hot Fuzz,
mm-hmm.
was very
fun. Definitely collaborators who like to work with each other a lot. So tell us why you suggested that movie for us to watch.
I selected Hot Fuzz. Well, we originally were going to go with Head of State, but I was like, I don't know if we should. I was like, kind of like, there's not so much I can speak about with Head of State, but it's one of those movies with Hot Fuzz. I just look at it as like, you know what? I consider it to be, it's one of my favorite films of all time. And I always consider it as like one of, to me, it's like one of the most complete films I've ever watched. It's, I think that's like if I have to tell somebody like how do you implement every element of filmmaking, that is like I would show them that movie. It's like an opus of filmmaking, just from every standpoint of the film, every element of the filmmaking, not just it has great cinematography, it has outstanding editing, and but on top of that, it has great production design, it has great audio design, it has like a really tight script. It has great comedic, like all around. There's not an element of the film of filmmaking, from lighting to wardrobe to makeup, that is not emphasized at some point through the story. And Hot Fuzz, and that's where with Hot Fuzz, I think that to me is like, people talk about Edgar Wright films, they talk about usually Shaun of the Dead or Scott Pilgrim or more recently Baby Driver. But I look at Hot Fuzz as like, that's probably my favorite Edgar Wright movie, along with Baby Driver, because I watch Baby Driver and I just think of Hot Fuzz. I'm like, he made this like he was preparing for a film like this, that where he has the perfect blend of action and comedy, But also with Hot Fuzz, it's one of, like, to me, it should be considered as one of the greatest parody films of all time. It should be up there with some of Mel Brooks's best stuff, Monty Python and everything, Airplane. It's just, Hot Fuzz is a parody film. They're making fun of a genre while doing the genre. And whereas, Spaceballs is a lot more like, oh, here's, like, some jokes, or like Blazing Saddles is a parody of all the Western films as well. This one is like, well, let's make fun of all the really, like, ridiculous buddy cop films by making a ridiculous buddy cop film. And it's not even really that ridiculous. It's kind of a critique of the genre itself as well. And at the end of the day, it critiques the genre by being the genre.
Yeah.
And I think that's
I think they found a good balance between, like, I'm a parody, but I'm also actually the movie that I'm making fun of. Like, it still is a fun buddy cop movie, but they are making fun of themselves the whole time whilst actually doing it, taking it seriously.
No, I absolutely. I think that's another element of it, is just the audacity to do that and just try and fail. But when I hear about the making of the film, makes it that much more incredible. And as I rewatched it last night, just to, like, I get refreshed, because I watch it a lot, but I wanted to be like, okay. And every time I watch it, there's more things I pay attention to now, like this time through. And one thing that I started realizing was kind of like the character of Nicholas Angel is such a great representation of how policing should be. And given this whole climate we're in now, I won't get entirely political, but just given the climate we're in now, where we're questioning the morality of cops, and questioning, like, people are asking to defund, and some are even asking to abolish the police altogether. And there's this debate about good cops versus bad cops. And you look at Nick Angel, his character is to me, the ultimate good cop. And it's not even just because he's the badass, he does all these badass things. The opening sequence of the film, him introducing himself, he talks about his credentials. He and his character, he says in the film at some point to, I won't spoil it, but to Danny's character, he says, like, he's always wanted to be a cop since he was a little kid. And that you see a photo of him when he's moving out of his place to go out to the country. There, I just noticed it for the first time yesterday. He pulled down a photo of him when he was a kid, dressed as a cop, driving a police pedal car. It's like, the details, for one, in the film are outstanding, but his character really bucks that trend of all these, like, ridiculously overly macho cops that we see in movies like John McClane or Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon, or like as the two movies they reference, Keanu Reeves in Point Break, and Will Smith and Martin Lawrence in Bad Boys 2, I should say. And it's just really interesting because he's a cop that he said he was a double major in politics and sociology. And part of the whole conversation we're having now is, like, should these cops have degrees in sociology? They should know how to interact with people and how to engage in their job. And he's a cop that he does everything by the book and upholds the law, even if it's unpopular. And the whole premise of the film is him going against the authority who are bending the law to their will. And I think that watching it yesterday, I was like, wow, you know what? This really is timely for now. More people should probably watch it, because this is an example of good police work. He's not just a good cop. He's not a super cop, but he is just a very great cop and is excellent at what he does and does his job to the extent of the law. And you see that he upholds the law so well. He does that when he goes to the pub at Sanford for the first time, and he sees all the teenage boys drinking there. And even though the pub owner's like, oh, there's nothing really wrong with it, they're not harming, we'd rather them be here safe where we can keep an eye on them. And he's like, it's still against the law, and they have to go to jail, or they have to get kicked out and arrest them. And so I think his character is, it's very awesome critique of how cops are portrayed in films versus how cops are in real life and how they possibly should be. And I think that's part of it. But there's so much more to that film that just stands out to me that is just worth talking about altogether.
Yeah, I think you need to watch Shaun of the Dead and then watch this film. Like, you have to watch it in the order of which, because there's a third film. What was the third film? They did, like, the trilogy.
The World's End.
The World's End.
Which is a sci-fi genre more than anything else.
Yeah, I feel like they definitely got less popular as they went. Like Shaun of the Dead is definitely the most popular.
Mm-hmm.
Hot Fuzz, and then what was it? The World's End. I can't even remember the name of it. But I loved the movie. I thought it was great. I had a fun time watching it all the way through. They took all these serious things too. There were moments where, obviously they're making fun of things, but they took it very seriously. And I think Simon Pegg is such a great actor that he kind of carries that weight of seriousness through the whole movie, because all these other characters, they're like very neglectful. They're like, yeah, whatever, it's all fine. And he's like, not fine. I'm here to fix this problem. And
which is also noteworthy about Simon Pegg, and which I think goes into writing a script as well. Him and Edgar Wright co-wrote the script, and he recently defined in an interview with Vanity Fair that it was just Edgar Wright wanted to go back to his hometown and just blow it up and do like, what if Lethal Weapon came to like Sanford in England? But he said, but he also mentioned, I forget when, it was like, guess in the behind the scenes or whatever, or the making of, he talked about that he went and did ride-alongs with actual metropolitan police officers in England, I think in London actually, and learned about their job as they were writing the script. And he said the main thing he pulled away was paperwork, that they always talk about processing and paperwork. Like that's a big element of the job. And they do, and you see it in the film. He says, well, he was talking about Lethal Weapon. He's like, it's a great film, but like there's no way that you could have that much amount of destruction and carnage without having to do massive amounts of processing and paperwork.
Yeah.
And it's an element of policing that he's like, it's not the best part of it, but it's a necessary part of it. And he did the proper research of learning about their jobs and really just being like, well, this is how policing really is, and but how can we turn that into this story and turn it into, and I think it's great. I think the whole part of like, with you said watching Hot Fuzz after Shaun of the Dead, I actually watched Hot Fuzz before ever seeing Shaun of the Dead. Like my mom was the one who told me, like when I was, this is 2007, so I was like 12 years old. She's like, you should watch this movie called Hot Fuzz. It's really funny. And I'm like, all right, I'll watch it. And it's like one of the first rated R movies I ever saw, I think. And I was like, this movie was so bizarre and so weird to me and so out there, but I thought it was so funny and I would watch it again. And then it just grew on me. And I think, but I hadn't seen Shaun of the Dead at that point. And then I watched Shaun of the Dead afterwards, and I still love that movie to pieces. But then I do end up watching all three in order. And it's kind of like, it stands out to me as the better movie. I think he got the perfect formula with that. Because also The World's End came after he did Scott Pilgrim versus the World. And that is, so it starts, his career basically goes Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and then Scott Pilgrim. Those are three, like, to me, it's just like he went up, up, and up. And then The World's End was like, it's a fine movie. I like it a lot. I think it's, everybody who talks about the Cornetto's trilogy, I views it as like the weakest of the three films, but it's not saying that it's a bad film. It's just like, well, it's not like as immediately like grasping as like Shaun of the Dead or Hot Fuzz. And then obviously he knocked it out the park with Baby Driver, which I'm pretty bitter about not winning any editing awards. But yeah, so.
I mean, his style is very, like, he takes editing into account when he films it. I think it's very important to acknowledge, because some filmmakers are just like, I'm just going to film the movie. I know what I have here. The editor's job is to make sense of it all. And I think the way he films his movie, there's no way that you can film it that way with all these push-ins and tight shots and montage sequences. There's no way you can do that and plan for that and shoot that without considering how the edit is going to wind up looking later. So I think he's one of the, he has this very unique style that I think incorporates a lot of, ideas and ways. I don't think you can edit it differently, if that makes sense. Like if you re-edited an Edgar Wright movie, you'd have a really tough time because all the shots are so specific. Like you'd just be cutting out a scene here or there. Like I don't think you could rearrange the movie and make it different. It's very stylized.
Yeah. It's also, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
No, you go ahead, because like we've been like talking, like, I want to see
No,
what you.
really, it's fine. I was gonna wrap it up, but if you have more
Yeah.
to contribute, please.
I was gonna say about Edgar Wright. Well, that's the thing. Like Edgar Wright is like is probably my favorite director. I kind of go by stages of like, which director influences me in certain cases. Like I love Edgar Wright. I obviously love Tarantino. I love David Fincher. Another one I think is a great and underrated director is Sam Esmail, who did Mr. Robot and now he's done Homecoming. But I think with Edgar Wright, I think that goes along with just that's how directing should be, is taking into account the editing. There is, it's just this attention to detail, and I'm like, we kind of talk about what makes we talk about with the award for best director at the Oscars, what makes the best director, what makes it like, that what makes somebody the best director at the time. And when it comes to like Edgar Wright's films, like his directing is top notch. It should be like what filmmakers and aspiring directors should look towards, because like I said, he pays attention to every aspect of the film. You watch the beginning of Hot Fuzz, after the montage of him introducing himself, and he's sitting with Martin Freeman's character and talking about they're sending him out to Sanford and they're promoting him. That entire scene, you hear in the background noise is the phones going off and office noise, but it ties into the scene so beautifully that like you'll see this one shot of it's Steve Coogan and Martin Freeman, they're looking at him like this, and a phone rings perfectly timed to just make their smiles that much funnier. Like to me, I laugh at that part, and sometimes the bits of silence, and then there's times where then the next scene, he's with Kate Blanchett and his girlfriend Janine, and telling her, I'm going out to they're sending me away. There's camera shutters going off, and there's the first line, and you probably don't know this because you watched it for the first time, but I noticed it yesterday. I'm like, oh my God, this is so funny. Or he walks in and he tells Janine, I'm being moved to Sanford. The guy goes, I'm not Janine. And she's like, Janine, I'm being moved to Sanford. There is a very subtle audio design of Simon Pegg looking at him, looking at her, and he blinks, and a camera shutter goes right off as he blinks, as if he just processed again and moves forward. And there's so many different instances of camera shuttering going off with blinking, with certain looks, and it's very subtle, and it's like only something you'll figure out as you go along, the more you watch the movie. But that's just an attention to directing. Like, yeah, he might have done that in editing with the audio, obviously, but there's got to be something where he was like, hey, hold that look right there. We're gonna have just hold that face, and he's like, that, just for the subtle detail. And he does that even in Baby Driver, which was kind of like maddening to me that it doesn't get as much love as it did like critically, because it's like, if we're talking about best directing, I mean, that year Jordan Peele was nominated for Get Out, Greta Gerwig was nominated for, was not nominated for Lady Bird, even though she should have been. But that year Guillermo del Toro won for Shape of Water. I feel like, how could you not nominate Edgar Wright? Because the attention with Baby Driver, especially the attention to detail, because of how dependent the action of the film was on its score and its soundtrack, to have gunshots going off at the same time as drum rolls, or having Kevin Spacey's character stack money at the timing of the song, just because the film was driven by its music. The script, if you read it, says this entire story is driven by its soundtrack, and that's what it says in the screenplay. That is something ambitious as a director to try to make everything sync up perfectly. Could you imagine if they were just like the slightest BPM off it's maddening. Like, okay, we probably have to reshoot all of that. And then it's not just like quick little shots. There's like a lot of long takes. There's a fair mix of long takes. And
I feel like he's one of those directors that almost everything he shoots in his movie is trailer worthy, because it's all timed out perfectly. So you can really cut out any moment and really put that right in the trailer, and it all works. Because like you said, like there's all the montage sequences, like gunshots going off at the same time as the music, things like that. It all fits.
Yeah, and even in Hot Fuzz, that's evident as well. Like, it's just, there are things that time out perfectly. He has the right songs for everything. Anytime Skinner shows up at the crime scene of like Martin Blower not Martin Bloor. Martin Bloor getting like decapitated by the cars is not much of a spoiler. It's shown in the trailer. He drives by and the song playing, because Martin Bloor played Romeo and Juliet. There's a song playing that says something about Romeo and Juliet on his radio. It's so soft, but it's an important attention to detail that is like, it would just kind of goes over your head. But it's just like, just in case somebody, like, say for me, is watching this more intently, I'd like for this to make some sense. And he's been doing that ever since he did Spaced, ever since, obviously Shaun of the Dead was another one. I mean, that's another masterclass in directing. I think his films are a great way of showing directing is much more than just calling action and telling actors where to go. It's a lot more than that. And if you really are a great director, you'll pay attention to every element, and you can heighten your films by just paying even the slightest more bit of attention and to details in your film, and saying, how can we make this a little bit funnier? Like, this is a comedy, but how can we make a joke out of like just silence? How can we make a joke out of a character shoving cake in Simon Pegg's face, and stuff like that? And he does that throughout all of his films, to me, and I think it's excellent. So with Hot Fuzz, I suggest it to anybody to go and check it out, because it's really, especially if you're a director, that just shows you how you can direct the film to perfection, just about. And I think that's why Hot Fuzz is like up there as like my top 5 favorite films of all time.
I think your real advice is to watch it and then watch it one more time. And maybe
watch it 5 more times.
Watch it like 6 times and keep watching it for all the new things you're going to see.
Mm-hmm.
So Isaac, what is coming down the pipeline for you? I know we're all stuck inside with coronavirus and everything, but are you working on anything right now?
Currently, working on a couple of scripts that I'm trying to get done. But as of now, production-wise, I'm working on a docu-series called The Gallery. I've been working on it since about early 2019. And it's just, I'm profiling local, rising, independent artists of any kind. Doesn't just have to be music or film or writing. It can be just about anything. And I'm going to be releasing that. That's going to be coming around in early July. The date has been pushed back due to the circumstances of the world right now. But but that's coming out soon. I have 4 episodes that are ready to come out. So The Gallery will be coming out very shortly. It's just a couple of short docu episodes, and I'm really excited about it. It's a real passion project of mine. And aside of that, I also have as we mentioned, Strange Fruit and Early Bird will both be coming out very soon. I'm both excited about that as well. So just keep a lookout.
Yeah. Well, we're going to show a clip. We're going to show the trailer for Early Bird right now for everybody's viewing pleasure. If you're listening, go check it out. See it because I shot it.
See it because it's also pretty good.
Seeing it is preferred. If you're listening to this on Apple or Google, you're wasting your fucking time. Get on YouTube, give it a watch. Thank you again, Isaac, for coming in. Let's show the clip, the trailer for Early Bird.
Thanks, guys.
So, what you doing all the way up here?
Fed said 2.5 is missing. Ben is the last man standing.
Just gotta get out of the way for a bit.
It's great on sunny days.
All right. Big thank you to Isaac for coming on the show, talking to us about all his film projects and everything going on. We just showed a clip from Early Bird, a film I shot, shameless plug, talking about myself again. I'm just really proud of it. I'm really happy with how this film came out. Visually, it looks really great, and happy to showcase and show off a little bit. I've worked with Isaac quite a few times. He's a great director. I like his taste. I like his taste in movies. And I thought Hot Fuzz was great. When he suggested it, I was like, great, I haven't seen that yet. So this is going to be really good to dive into this movie that I know I'm going to like, but just never took the time to watch. Do you have any movies like that? Have you had a movie where you're like, I know I like this, but I just don't, you're never in the mood for it, or you just didn't take the time to do it?
I'm sure I do. I can't think of anything at the moment, but I'm sure I like probably Logan when I finally watched it with you.
That's true.
I knew I would like it, and I knew it was, right up my alley. I like superhero movies. And I loved everything I was hearing about how that film was so different. Really kind of stepping out of the box. So I knew I would like it, but I just was never like in the mood to watch it until you forced me to watch it when we were hanging out.
It's at the point where I'd been telling you to watch it for so long that it was like, hey, you want to hang out? Yes. Do you want to get lunch? Sure. Cool. We're going to watch this movie now.
Yeah.
Gotcha. We're already hanging out. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
This is all we're doing. We're hanging out. We're watching this movie.
But I'm sure I have lots of films like that where I know I would like it. I just haven't gotten around to watching it. I tend to, especially right now, it's a comfort thing for me. I read an article and I was like, yes, that's me, about why people rewatch things that they've seen a million times over. It's because it takes the anxiety out of watching it because you know what's coming.
Yeah.
And even if it's not like a thriller, like even with Hot Fuzz, I'd seen it before, but it had been a long time. And I could feel myself getting like anxious of like, wait, what happens next? When is he gonna like?
I think that's why you take a break from something. So like we were just talking about The Last of Us, which is it's a video game that's about to get a sequel. And we're talking about how you haven't played it in years. So replaying it after a long time, it lets you kind of forget certain moments and it lets you be in the moment. And there's nothing like seeing a movie or playing a game for the first time. Like when I saw Avengers Endgame, that's such a public experience. Like, I don't know if we're ever going to have that again with movies and the way that everything's going on, but you're in the theater and, Captain America picks up Thor's hammer and everyone goes fucking apeshit. People are like, ah! Nobody does that in other types of movies. That's why I love Marvel so much. It's like a fucking roller coaster. And I know Scorsese said it's like theme parks for movies. Like, yeah, theme parks are fun, dude. They're a good time. But yeah, I think it's like a refresh rate. Like if you watch something and then you immediately watch it again and then watch it again, like you got to take a break from it, let it sit for a while and come back to it, and you'll enjoy it and you'll remember all your favorite parts and then keep seeing new things. Hot Fuzz is definitely one of those movies that you could watch 5 or 6 times and keep seeing or noticing new stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean it moves. You're right, Edgar Wright has a very specific way of filming, and especially with this film, they were parodying buddy cop films. So a lot of like the quick camera motions and the montage sequences that they would do, just even for how he enters a police station. It was the same way every time, how he walked in, how he checked in, how he changed, how he logged in for the day, and then how he logged out for the day. It was all very stylized and very specific. And because it's so fast, you can miss a whole lot of stuff. But like Isaac was saying, there are very tiny details that make this film so complete. With the sound effects and punching things at the right time, making sure that phone rang right at the time that Steve Coogan smiled to make sure that it was, it punched it and it was funny.
Mm-hmm.
I think
that's stuff if you watch it 5 or 6 times. And
yeah.
I think it's very clear after listening to that interview with Isaac, he watched it a lot of times. He noticed all these weird, very small details that you can tell the director and writers and creators of this film really paid attention to every little thing, which is awesome.
Well, and it's so smart too. Like when Isaac was talking and he was pointing that stuff out, I thought back to one of my favorite TV shows that I love to watch over and over and over is Archer from FX, and especially the first few seasons. It's gotten kind of off the rails recently, but in the first couple seasons of it, when they were just a spy agency, they did a lot of that where they would cut from one scene, they would ask a question at the end of one scene, and cut to a different scene not connected at all, the first person saying something was actually answering that question from the person before. And they would have also those little like sound effects in the background or someone responding to something in the background that if you weren't paying close attention, you'd miss it. But it's so clever and so smart that I think things like that, I really appreciate things like that in movies. And
The equivalent of a match cut, but with dialogue.
yeah, yes.
It's kind of fun. It's a fun, playful way to, especially with a cartoon where you can make it whatever you want, literally draw anything. It's fun to have stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. But Hot Fuzz it's hilarious. And, you know, I do have to say when Issack suggested it and, you know, with everything that's going on in the world with, you know, Black Lives Matter and defunding the police movement and all of that, I was a little hesitant to watch a movie kind of glorifying the police. But at the same time, I think Issack is very right in that, you know, it's not about glorifying them or, you know, we all love the rogue cop who, you know, doesn't play by the rules. This cop does play by the rules, and he did.
Rules.
Mm-hmm. And I what I also really appreciate about this film is that yes, it is a parody of you know, buddy cop films, but they took it so seriously, and while they're making fun of it, they're shooting it very seriously. They are shooting a buddy cop film and using all of the tropes and all of the things that are seen in buddy cop films all the time. So, and that's what makes comedy so funny is you have to be very serious about it. You have to take it seriously. If you're trying to be funny, you're not going to be funny. So the fact that they were very serious and they did it so purposefully, that's what made this film work.
Yeah, there's very few comedians or writers that create comedy that are like just able to just do it. Like you have to put work into it. It takes a lot of work. It takes writing, testing jokes out, especially like stand-up comedians. They come up with a joke and then they try it on stage and then people are like, nah, like they get vibes from people and they kind of gauge audience reactions. I feel like Simon Pegg, I don't know if he's ever done stand-up, but he's hysterical and he's fun to watch. The whole cast too, especially with Shaun of the Dead and all these movies, they keep working with the same people. There's definitely the vibe of like comfortability, like they all know each other. So they work really well together. They are able to develop this really good comedic timing, which I think half the film kind of rests on the two or three main actors of like their comedic timing and their pacing matching with Edgar Wright's pacing and everything all lining up. When you have a film like this, it's kind of like the constellations all align, where like art department and music and the acting and timing and all those things like sync up perfectly. It's a good movie no matter what, whether it's a comedy, a drama, whatever.
Yeah. Well, and actually, so Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg, they co-wrote the film, and it actually took them 18 months to write the script, which is a pretty long time to develop a script. I mean, they said multiple drafts. It took them multiple drafts to get it right and get it where they wanted it to be. And their hard work definitely paid off. You know, it's really well done. I know some of the critics weren't too thrilled with it, but it still has a really high Rotten Tomatoes score now. A lot of, it doesn't always matter what the critics say. It's what the audience says, and the audiences loved it. So
I think the critics gave it like a 7 or 8 out of 10 roughly, but then the audience reported back and said it was like a 90 out of 100. So I mean, I think its success depends highly upon like what do these skilled critics, and are these critics really that skilled? Like, who are they? Like, why are they better than the average viewer?
Yeah.
Sometimes people like a movie, like the general public likes a movie, and it's terrible. And like from a filmmaker's perspective, you're like, this movie shouldn't be good. You shouldn't enjoy it. But for tons of people like it. I think it's all taste. It's all what people think. But it's hard not to like this movie at all. Like you can't. It's made so well, and it's very cohesive, and it all fits together in such a way that I think whether you're into these kinds of movies or not, like it's still a fun watch and it's still funny. Yeah, it definitely. I don't think it's won too many awards or anything like that. Its budget, when they were coming up with the budget for this film, it's pretty small, $12 to $16 million. Nothing too crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, if you have a film like action film with bombs going off and gunfire and things, you got to probably put aside $5 million just for that one scene where they rolled back into town and shot everybody up. So that action, that's where half their budget went, which is kind of crazy. But the box office, they pulled in $80 million. So if they spent $16 million to make the movie and they made $80 million back, that's 4 times over. They made their money back, which is great. And that's just box office, let alone DVD sales. Remember DVDs? Remember when that was a thing?
I watched it on DVD. Well, my fiance has the most ridiculous DVD collection ever. We don't have room for all of them. And so I watched it on DVD, and I forgot, how much more stuff you get on a DVD. Like they had deleted scenes, they had, outtakes, they have like the version with the commentary from Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright. They had in the one scene where Danny flips through his book and you see his well, what is that called? It's just a flip book, I guess, the flip book animation that he drew.
Yeah,
they have
the word I just thought of was pentagram, but that's not it. That's if you want to summon a demon.
Right. It's very different.
Something it's definitely something gram or like stephagram or something weird like that.
Well, everyone knows what the flip book thing. So he has the one flip book that you see, and then he flips it over, and he's like, I've got another one, but you don't actually see it in the movie. They have it in the DVD. So I do kind of miss DVD.
What was it? Give us the was the other. The one was he shoots the
so the bad guy running away. He's bad guy running away, and then the cop hits him with the car, and then backs up over him again and again and again, and then he shoots the bad guy in the head, and then the bad guy's head explodes, and there's blood everywhere.
I think that's almost a little bit to Shaun of the Dead, because didn't they do that in Shaun of the Dead where they ran the zombie over and then they backed up and ran him over again? Or am I thinking?
Well, they actually they do a couple things that call back to Shaun of the Dead when they have the scene where they're chasing after the kid who shoplifted in the supermarket, and you have Simon Pegg's character Nicholas jumping over the fences, and then Frost's character Danny tries to emulate it, and he just plows through the fence. That's a callback to Shaun of the Dead. So they do that. They do a couple of those throughout the film.
To watch a grown man run straight through a wooden fence. You know what we're missing in the world? I think this would fix a lot of the world's problems. Jackass.
Yeah. Well,
Jackass made a resurgence.
I mean, Jackass, they take it a little far. I like watching people like the slapstick of like running through a fence, but as soon as you get to like where they're like farting in a tube connected to a helmet on a guy's head, then I'm like, no, I don't need that.
During each other's nutsacks or something really gross. Like, that's too far.
Yeah.
Do you know Eliza Schlesinger? I think I said her name right. She's a comedian.
Yeah.
She did a sketch show on Netflix, and she did a parody of Jackass, but it was an all-women Jackass. So they're all standing around, and at one point they just keep doing things like they keep insulting each other, but not really. The female version of Jackass would just be like, wow, I love how that scarf really brings out your elbows. And the girl being like, what? My elbows? And cuts away, and she's just like, what's wrong with my elbows? And like really worried. That's apparently what Jackass is for women.
I mean,
Quote unquote.
I've seen women fight that way, yeah. I fought that way. Whoops.
I don't see, you're too nice. I can't imagine you being like, wow, your scarf really makes your elbows look shitty. Like,
I hope I've grown since fighting that way, thinking high school or early college years, I was like that, but
Hmm.
hopefully I've grown since then and
Yeah.
don't do that anymore.
Well, Nick proposed to you, so
Well, Nick also has the maturity of a 12-year-old, so who knows?
it works on him. Maybe keep doing it.
um,
What,
go ahead.
what do you think is your favorite scene from Hot Fuzz?
Favorite scene from it has to be the showdown scene where, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, the villain of the whole thing is essentially the old residents of the town that are part of the Neighborhood Watch Association. So it's all 50, 60, and 70-year-old people who have these guns stored on them, and Simon Pegg and Nick Frost get into this huge gun battle with all these old people, and it's just hilarious to watch them, like, you know, pulling out shotguns, and the one woman in her little bicycle with the basket, she pulled out the two guns and she's like flying down the cobblestone street just like shooting at like, it was hilarious to watch all of that.
I remember from the trailer, the one they used in the trailer was the priest coming up and saying, "Please, can we stop with all this violence?" And then pulling out guns from his sleeves.
Yeah, just shot like right out. Hilarious.
So funny.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say that's not your favorite scene. I think my favorite scene, because of how ridiculous it is the scene after they have that big gunfight, right? And then the one guy who's kind of left over after all of it that they kind of forgot about, and he comes to the police station and like tries to shoot them, and they take him down, and he falls over and he blows up this like weird sea mine that they had in the police station, and the whole police station explodes, like down to the bricks.
Yeah.
Everything is exploded, millions of pieces everywhere. Simon Pegg was standing directly next to the explosion, directly next to the bomb, nothing in the way. Everybody's okay.
Yeah.
Movies that blow up whole buildings, but the people in them are fine, blow my mind. And I think that's kind of funny. And then especially too, like, the building is literally leveled. There's no structure standing anymore. There's just piles of bricks. They're all laying down on the tops of the bricks.
Yeah.
The building didn't fall on them, but rather the building fell through them, and they're just on top of it now. Weird things like that. It's just, it makes, it like enhances comedies. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I hate it when it's done in a dramatic film, when you're like, come on, that wouldn't have happened that way. But when it's a comedy, you can get away with it. So it like just lends to the story in a funny way.
Mm-hmm.
It's like cartoonish, you know. It's like Tom and Jerry when they blow each other up, and then it would just be like smoke, and their skin like would be seared black from a bomb or something. And then like this, and then they're fine.
Yeah, I love how they took all the liberties of, you know, typical buddy cop films where building blows up, somehow they walk out of it fine, you know, they get shot in the chest, you know, and somehow miraculously a scene later they don't have a scratch, you know, that bomb blew up in their face and they're not, maybe they have a cut, like that's it. So I think that was
Indestructible.
huh
Indestructible.
yes
I love that Simon Pegg's character got stabbed in the hand by Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yes, that happened.
Well,
and cut to that one shot where it's stabbed too. I don't know if you noticed this either. The guy playing Santa Claus, I'm pretty sure that was, I forget what his name is. It's like Dominic something from Lord of the Rings, who's one of the hobbits.
I think it was Peter Jackson.
What? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, if you look at the cameos on Wikipedia, so there's a bunch of British actors that I'm not very familiar with, but obviously there was Stephen Merchant. Stephen Merchant was Peter Ian Staker.
Yeah.
Then they also had Steve Coogan was not credited as the Metropolitan Inspector. Peter Jackson was the Criminal Justice Father Christmas. Kate Blanchett was Janine, which she was in complete, you know, CSI cover-up. She had an N95 mask and, you know, a big plastic thing, so you couldn't even tell it was her.
Who was that woman?
Kate Blanchett played his ex-girlfriend.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
You never even see her face, so it's weird that you would even put such a big celebrity in a movie like that and not showcase their face at one point.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Little short cameos in these movies. You know, must be nice to be in Hollywood. You can just be like, hey, come by for like a day.
Yeah. Yeah, I love a lot of the familiar faces that I saw, like having Bill Nighy and Martin Freeman and Steve Coogan. That they were hilarious in the beginning. That was so funny to me, them behind the desk, and I love them.
Yeah. It does. Do you think it takes away from the mystery of the movie? Maybe not so much a comedy, but like when you have a movie and the lead character walks into a bar and you're seeing a bunch of new faces for the first time, and you see Brad Pitt sitting at the bar, and maybe you don't notice him right away, but you're like, that's Brad Pitt. He's the guy that you're going to go talk to. It takes away from the mystery when you know the actor so well. You know, and
I mean,
Brad Pitt just stands out because he's Brad Pitt.
I mean, yes and no, because I think if you know anything about the movie at that point, you're gonna know who he's going in to talk to. Even if it's not a well-known actor, if you've seen trailers or whatever, you probably have some inclination. And especially with the way that, you know, directors, the director has, you know, shot it, you have some inkling that that's the person that they're going to talk to. So, you know, it doesn't bother me when it's like, you know, big name recognition in a film, and unless they're specifically trying to make it, you know, unknown who they're talking to, but in any sort of marketing, you're gonna know.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't really hide it.
I didn't really watch any trailers before watching this. I've seen trailers since like 2007 or 2008 when the movie came out, but I didn't watch the trailer before watching this movie. I just put it on, and right away. But just because of watching Shaun of the Dead, I recognized all the actors that had been in these movies with these characters already. So it was almost like when they walked onto this screen, most of the time, most characters got the intro, but with Simon Pegg, with the, who's the other guy, his buddy?
Nick Frost?
Nick Fox? Nick Frost. So Nick Frost is sitting at the bar when they all enter, when Simon Pegg walks in for the first time, and he's looking around at all these new faces, and he looks at Nick Frost, and I'm just like, he's going to go to that guy. Like, he's going to talk to him. He's going to be a part of the story. And then, of course, he gets thrown in jail for being drunk and trying to drive his car and all that. But it took away from the mystery of, like I already know that he's going to be an integral part of the story. And because he was already in the trailers wearing a police uniform, you know he's a cop. And, like, that kind of fell flat for me a little bit, just because I already kind of knew it was coming. But most of it is really not relying even on the joke, but rather the comedic timing of it.
Yeah.
Because it's all a parody of a buddy cop movie, you kind of understand it already. If you've ever seen buddy cop movies or any kind of cop movie, it makes fun of it. So you kind of get the joke, but it's really all about how you tell the joke.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a weird balance. I think they struck right on the balance, which is great. Edgar Wright is a very stylized director, so he kind of nails it every time.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to watch Baby Driver. That's going to be the next movie that I'm like, you need to watch it. On you. To the next people that come on the podcast and be like, do you want us to watch Baby Driver? Who do you think you should have us watch Baby Driver, Baby Driver?
Hint, hint, hint. All right, I'll watch Baby Driver. I don't know. I have a hard time watching anything with Kevin Spacey at this point. Even like House of Cards, I loved watching it, but I have a hard time.
When you see someone in the movie that you know what they're like in real life now and things have blown up, it's like, like, can I watch Seven? Like, is Seven not okay anymore?
Seven, he was in that, right? That was the card counting film? No.
Seven was Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey was a serial killer. What's in the box? What's in the box?
Oh, okay. Yes. Thank you.
But it was such an amazing performance, and it's tough because you're like, I really like this work that this guy put out, but he's a shady person. Like, when do you turn it off? When are you saying, like, it's not worth it?
I mean, honestly, I think it's everybody's personal choice in how they want to deal with it. And it's hard because, like, you know, like when they shut down House of Cards filming before their last season, you know, everyone was like, yes, this is the right move because Kevin Spacey shouldn't be continued to get away with this and you know, be allowed to continue making you know, TV and films like he did nothing wrong. But then you realize that by doing that, you're punishing, you know, a lot of people who are not, you have no idea. That's just, you know, that's
Of course, because hundreds of people lost their jobs with that decision.
mm-hmm. So then they end up, you know, they bring it back and they end up going to the end of the show much faster than they wanted to. It was always supposed to end with Claire, but they had to jump real quick to a lot of things and try and move forward without him.
Real life scenarios impact movies. It's tough because sometimes with things like Game of Thrones, for instance, those they started that show. A lot of those people on that show were children. Mm-hmm. And then they did for season 3, they sent off Bran and Rickon and a couple other characters, and they're super young, and they didn't appear in season 4 at all. And I think a lot of season 5 as well, they didn't show up right away or something like that. And then all of a sudden they came back, and it's like the oh shit moment, like, oh, they're back. But Bran, the reason they didn't show them for a whole season is because those kids were like going through puberty, and it was tough to like film them because they're changing so fast as people that it's hard to explain that on camera, like episode to episode, especially if you're filming out of order and jumping around. Like, that kid's nose went from being like normal looking kid nose, baby nose, to a schlong of a nose. Like, it was out to here. That kid grew an extra pound of nose in a month. And, you know, he got really tall and lanky too. So it's hard to explain. You need like a passage of time to explain it. Mm-hmm. So sometimes too, things like sequels, movies that are coming back after a long time, some movies choose to ignore, and it's easier with like cartoons, like Incredibles. They had a sequel 12 years after the first one, and they took off right from the moments of the last film. They kept continuing, which is really cool and interesting. But then you have a movie that you can't do that with, where everybody ages, like Blade Runner. Harrison Ford's old as shit. You can't make it the same way. You have to do it differently. But they did Blade Runner 2024? Is that what it was?
2049.
2049? That's right.
I think.
Great movie, by the way. First movie I ever saw with Movie Pass. Before Movie Pass.
R.I.P. Remember Movie Pass?
Remember when you could see movies for so little money? Yeah.
That was great.
But great movie, but it definitely took aging in real time. Like, it was like, okay, well, now these characters are this old. What has happened to them in between the movies? Establish that. Some movies don't have to suffer from this because it's open curtain, closed curtain, call it a day. But with so many movies that are exploding into franchises nowadays, that you have to consider things like Terminator. It's hard to know what they're going to do with it because Arnold Schwarzenegger is the Terminator.
Yeah.
But he's old now. He's like old as shit. He can't keep up doing the same stuff anymore. They find ways, and they do amazing CGI for like a shot or two. But it's tough to just be like, yeah, let's just keep making these movies. Eventually he's going to be like 106 years old. He's going to be like, I am the Terminator.
Well, it's the same with Rambo and Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
Just made another one. Okay.
Now he's like 68. He's up there too. Isn't he like 70?
He's in his 70s, I think.
He's a very young 70, first of all. But
well, plenty of work to.
For sure. He's
keep the booty going.
But I mean, he's good. He looks good too. It's not like he looks like some people get plastic surgery and they look like they melted in the microwave a little bit.
Well, and he could still emote with his face. It's not like Cher, who's had so much, like, it kills me, Cher's career, because she won an Oscar for her performance in Moonstruck, and she is a brilliant actress, but now that she's had so much plastic surgery, she can't emote anymore.
Yeah.
So you can't.
I think it's important to acknowledge how different it is for guys and girls for plastic surgery and then being able to act in movies. Girls don't have the luxury of being tough and stoic most of the time. Like, usually girls are being asked to portray characters that are super emotional and, like, girly or whatever.
Well, it's not even just that. It's women can't age in Hollywood most of the time. Like, you look at, just look at, like, Silver Linings Playbooks. You had Bradley Cooper, who was in his 40s when he shot that, and Jennifer Lawrence, who was 23 playing his love interest. Like, that's constant. You know, when Johnny Depp was at the height of his career, they were having, you know, like Keira Knightley playing the possible love interest to him in Orlando Bloom in Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, you don't have women actually being able to play a contemporary age with, I mean, it's starting to get better, but still it's pretty ridiculous. So that's why
She's probably one of the most beautiful women on the planet. And I don't know what she looks like right now, but I guarantee you if I saw a photo of her today, I'd be like, wow, she looks incredible. But yet I haven't seen her in movies in like 6-7 years because she just like hit the age and disappeared and fell off the world. Maybe she's just not acting, but is it a combination of like the industry ran her out, or is it?
I mean, it's probably multiple things. You know, it's, you know, whether she doesn't want to do it anymore, she's, you know, she's choosing more specific projects for herself, what have you. But I would say 9 times out of 10, you know, women are not allowed to age, you know, naturally without a little help so that they look younger for longer. You know, they can't do the silver fox thing like men do, which is frustrating. But
Look, there's exceptions. There are. Marissa Tomei keeps getting more attractive to me. And that's just how that works for her. Charlize Theron continually, she just looks more attractive every time I see her. And
they're not aging typically. I don't think that necessarily all of them are doing plastic surgery or what have you, but I mean, you watch how
they're barely
age.
like most people age like normal people, and they are like superhumans. And honestly, I'll put Sylvester Stallone in that category because the dude looks like he's 50 and he's 20 years older than that.
Yeah.
So, but Charlize Theron is probably the weirdest one for me because she's in her 50s.
Is she really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Theory.
How old is Charlize Theron?
Yeah.
We got way off topic from Hot Fuzz, didn't we?
Well, we started talking about attractive actresses, and now I'm just like in it.
Now I'm here for it. We find out how old she is?
She's 44. I thought she was even older than that. But you know what I was thinking of? I was thinking of Nicole Kidman, who's 50-something. And then she was in Aquaman, and she had all these crazy fight scenes, and she looked great. But, you know, some people age and, like, it doesn't show. And I hate those people. But also I love looking at them.
This is the problem, Jim.
Away, but fuck you. I don't know. It's weird. Some actors are able to play the same roles for so long. And it blows my mind. You have Sylvester Stallone. He's still playing Rocky. You have actors like Hugh Jackman, who did not age for like 20 years. It looks a little different. Of course, he grew out his beard. And Logan, he tried to look older for Logan than he did in like his first X-Men movies. But, you know, it's crazy how some people age and some people just like flip the switch and all of a sudden they're old as shit.
Well, I mean, it also doesn't help that no matter what they're doing in Hollywood, they definitely have a few steps up on the rest of us as far as like personal training, you know, beauty regimens, health and nutrition, and all. They have a couple steps up.
There's a team of people that make that person look that good all the time.
Yeah.
Totally understand that. You have Rob McElhenney, who's said it multiple times for It's Always Sunny, because he gained like 50, 60 pounds for the role.
Mm-hmm.
And then within like 6 months, lost it and got ripped to the point where it was like, that's not healthy no matter how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
But when someone asked him, like, what's the secret? And he's like, there is no secret. I had a team of people who were like nutritionists who helped me every day. They thought I was pushing it too far. And I just, you know, it's just hard work and exercise nonstop. Don't eat a carb ever.
Well, Kumail Nanjiani said the same thing for what's the new Marvel movie that he's in?
The Eternals.
The Eternals, right. He said the same thing. He was like, this is not sustainable for any normal human being. This is not sustainable.
My favorite one is Gerard Butler, because he talks about being in 300. And of course, that's like every person in 300 is like sculpted out of stone.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first movies for Michael Fassbender, which you forget he's even in that, but they're all just so cut. It's insane. So he told a story once. They asked him, like, what's it like being, you know, the Leonidas? Like, you must be pulling girls in left and right. And he's like, yeah, it's really disappointing, because as soon as I take off my shirt, they're like, oh, because you don't look the same way that you looked in 300, where there's a team of, not only just a team of people making sure you are fit and like you have the abs and stuff, but then there's a makeup team that like highlights his abs. And then there's lighting guys that are lighting it in certain ways so that your abs look even more cut. And it's so fake. It's just not real.
Mm-hmm.
Real for like 4 days, and then he eats a donut and it's all over.
Yeah.
Gone.
Game over.
It's just wild. That's ripped, and I don't know. That's the reason.
Moral of the story: eat whatever you want. It's not real.
No matter what you do, none of it's real. It's all a simulation.
Mm.
You know, there's 50 states. Area 51 is the exit to the simulation. So that's why we can't get in.
And on that note,
Mind blown. End the podcast with a mind blower.
Well, we want to thank Issack for joining us today, sharing with us all the work that he's done. We're really excited to see his upcoming projects, and we'll be able to include everything so that you can check out his production company, check out what he's doing, and stay updated on that. You can watch our podcast on Apple Podcasts, well, hear it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. You can watch us on YouTube. And thanks for joining us, guys. I'm Victoria Fragnito.
I'm Jim Galizia. Thank you, guys. See you next time.